Again, hello and welcome to the Zero Gravity Gaming Iron, Bronze, Silver Positional Power Rankings. It's me, the organizer slash collaborator on this data, Feathers and Fur, with a special guest, LeBram James, coming in here to share his thoughts, again as a veteran player, over multiple splits. Certainly a voice that can express both the present and past when it comes to the Iron, Bronze, Silver League. Just some kind of beginning details. First of all, again, as I am a player in this league, I'm not going to be including myself, and I overtly did not do so, in the top lane because, quite simply, I'm a compiler of this data. I wanted to remain unbiased. When it comes to MVP votes, I allowed that, but for the most part, again, I tried to remain a distant observer. In general, players were asked to vote on 11 people in a variety of roles, with 1 being the weakest, 11 points being the strongest. In regards to kind of over the course of a split, naturally players are going to go from position to position and alternatively team to team. And because of this kind of transient nature, it makes it very difficult to ever get a proper 100% complete snapshot of the league. Again, we've got players transitioning in different positions within a team. We've got players like Resident Hooker / I Play Support who have been on 3 teams over the course of the split. So in general, we just chose to kind of draw our arbitrary lines in the sand. Therefore, that's why we have 11 in each role. There's no substitutes. After we cover each lane, going through a variety of people, we will then move on to the MVP votes. So, top lane. Top lane somewhat mired in mediocrity beyond the first 2. Some people even went so far to completely not even give a first place vote because the person that they would select was not present. Every player here seemed to have some issues that were brought up by a few individuals on ballots. So there was this perception of, by and large, people being average. In this role, more so than other roles, we had the biggest kind of clump in the middle. That is to say, the shortest difference between the top player and the lowest player. You wouldn't find that, as an example, in AD carry or mid lane, which we'll get to later, which once more speaks both to the parity and alternatively to the fact that it was very difficult for people to distinguish perhaps one top laner for another. Consistency usually is what yielded a high mark, and even some of the lower players here were praised for quite a few things, so it does speak to the parity of the role presently. In the first position here, we have Lynx from Illumination Valiant. And Illumination Valiant is pretty well known for playing pretty effectively as a unit, and in some eyes, this player has epitomized that. They know their role, they rarely struggle in lane, can match up well against anyone, major reason for their team success. That being said, they're also extremely polarizing because some ballots actually had this player listed as the worst top laner in the entire league. That happened on 1 ballot, and 3 first place votes for him as the best. So there's definitely some opinion, to say the least, about this particular player. But given the fact that he had a lead of nearly kind of 9 points, there was enough to kind of have Lynx in his own tier because of that consistency. So LeBram, what are your general thoughts again about kind of Lynx being up here at the top?
So first, I just want to say thank you for being involved. I'm reading this for the first time, guys, just as you guys are. I was not involved with making this. I only put in my votes, and this is my first time seeing top laners right now. And yeah, like, looking through the top laners, I think you've already said it, but I need to mention it again, like, feel like they have mediocre this season, with no one really standing out, but no one really, again, being the worst. So, Lynx, in my opinion, great player, but he's so good because he understands his role in Illumination Valiant. His main two champs are like Maokai and Ornn, and he's picked them over and over again, and I think it's amazing that he understands exactly what he needs to do. Other than that, there's nothing special about him, in my opinion.
One thing that that stood out for me very briefly about Lynx was the CS lead he was able to gain this last week. So again, I believe that's kind of week 7. In any case, it's the week where they had to face Astro New Horizon, and he was able to get a pretty substantial lead on one of the other top laners that we're going to discuss here later. Coming in at second, we have Evil Gambit, Classic Esports Arrow, formerly Astro New Horizons top laner, at 76 points. General thought that people had this player should be respected and feared by other top laners and teams, but people really took the time to discuss the elephant in the room with this player. This player hasn't won a single series this split, and despite being up near the top of positional power rankings the last 2 splits, this person certainly has a lot of respect, but one wonders how much higher this player would be rated if the teams he was on this split had more success. And so similar to kind of Lynx, we talk about Lynx knowing his role. People have wondered at some points with Evil Gambit, is that really where the problem is? Does this player not, know their role in regards to the team? And that's not, me speaking that for kind of my opinion. People just really pointed out, we look at this person, really solid top laner, but the results just simply aren't there. So it created an interesting dynamic in the ballots as they had substantial variations in scores. We usually had people who had looked at them over the last 2 splits, putting them up near the top, kind of top 3, whereas people who are newer to the league tended to put Evil Gambit lower. So just kind of general thoughts on that.
Yeah. Again, I say Evil Gambit is a great player. I put him number 1 for top laners in my own rankings, and I really thought he was good. It just there was no consistency there with the team. It's the same thing with I play support. We get to him, but yeah, that's what I call the I play syndrome. Is when you go around too many teams and you don't find consistency, it really can take down your total a lot. And I think if you had a consistent team, you would have definitely been number 1 top laner, and it wouldn't have even been close.
Again, I'm inclined to agree. That is just the dynamic. Looks good certainly on the surface, but it comes down to a question of kind of the chicken or the egg. Is it the team or is it the player? And in the case of Lynx, it had seemed to be both. That's what got Lynx in first and kind of Gambit dropping back to the second position here. Coming in at number 3, again with no first place votes, but relatively solid across the board, we had Rakan Game from Monkeys in Training, who I believe is now transitioning back to kind of more of a bench/support role for them. In regards to playing tank champions, many people felt that either this player or Lynx is kind of the premier player in the league. Lynx, while being well known on kind of Ornn or Maokai, Rakan Sion is usually if it's not, dealt with, it's going to be picked, for better or worse. We'll see what happens in regards to the potential benching of this player, but certainly based on the votes was pretty well respected by their peers. Questions about their champ pool have been raised because, once more, if you're playing against them, if you're not banning Sion, that is more often than not the fallback pick for that player. So having seen, 65% of games on Sion, people were going, well, does this player, have a deeper champ pool? Or is it, okay, we're coming into champ select knowing we're going to go up against a Sion, now what?
So, for Rakan Gaming, which I believe has changed his name to Daddy Soul or something like that?
Yeah, it's now Daddy Soul.
Yeah, so from what I see, looking at his picks, I put him a little bit lower than the 3rd ranking here, just because 7 of his 9 games were Sion games, and his 2 games that were not were Poppy and Nasus, and he did not do exceptionally well in them. And I'm like, If you ban a Scion, then what else? If there's no champ pool there, then I think it's the teams who's played against, that's their fault for not banning that Scion.
Again, moving along, we have in the 4th spot Indigo of Redemption, who did receive 1 first place vote. Now again, Indigo was kind of put here as a minor placeholder because yes, he did have, 1 series in top, but for the most part, again, he'll be transitioning to the jungle role of Redemption in future weeks. And since Redemption did not have a top laner listed here, this is where Indigo was kind of placed as a result. Some players can't wait to see this player return back to the league and have an impact. It'll be interesting to see what he brings to the table for the remainder of the split. But there's more than enough evidence from the past that this player can take over a game. Again, Indigo was... The common meme around, again, is that Indigo was robbed last season in regards to MVP. Opinions on that aside, this player certainly was well respected last split, has kind of carried it into this split, and there does seem to be that kind of profound difference. He originally was on support a couple weeks prior, struggled a bit there. Now he got put back on carries a little bit in top lane in the week in which this was listed, so he had a good showing. People kind of have a little bit of past with this player. Obviously, those who were here last split certainly have to know his name, and kind of present going forward. A little bit new, but still some stuff to kind of look at.
Yeah, and I feel like Indigo is the veteran you don't want to see the other team sub out of nowhere. Because, he's just that type of veteran that can slot in and play well. I feel like when he slotted in and played support against Cosmic, he was not very good, and I think he just felt out of the loop there. But, once he came back to an actual carry role in top lane with Redemption, he played well, he understood his power, and I just need to see more games out of this player, and hopefully he'll impress us.
So moving forward to the number 5 position here, we have a Power Ranger from Astro New Horizon, who is really relatively close. Again, points-wise, if we're looking at this, Rakan Game / Jaddy Soul was 66. Indigo was tied with him at 66. Then we have a Power Ranger at 65, which is, I must stress, incredibly close between these two. Remember that if there's one more single vote from either group, we would have a difference. We could have an entirely, different set of these three if they had just been ranked differently on, one different ballot. So many people think this player certainly impressed in his first series, and they hold him in high regard. The fact of the matter is, a Power Ranger was only in his second, I believe, week when he was when the power rankings kind of started here. He had another week where he played Illumination Valiant and subsequently kind of slots in here. So, relatively small experience pool to draw on, relatively high position. Very, very close to potentially being in the top 3 in a 2-point difference. So, it's evident that people think that there's potential for this player to be the best top laner in the league, which once more could apply back to the mediocrity, but just need more evidence. Just need more time with this player to see and perhaps prove that this player is either a top player in the league or alternatively perhaps just went up against some easier opponents.
And I think potential against the keyword here, because again, his first 2 games were against Toxic. Nothing against Toxic, but they're not exactly a team in this league. And to do okay against Toxic, and that's it. I don't see that as much of a reason to rank him as high as other top laners.
I mean, completely and totally fair. Again, ultimately, the one statement that people had was his experience. So, we look at the Illumination Valiant game, ended up coming a bit short. Perhaps, again, that's just a continual aspect of growth. So, in natural fashion, one sec, I'm just going to send you a friend request here because we're going to have a third guest on this.
Okay.
We're the infamous mid laner of good old Redemption wants to be able to be heard in neither official language. So he's here. We're just, as soon as he enters in, we're going to have the new Jensen, mid laner for Redemption, coming in here. Moving on to the next one. So I believe that this is number 6. In number 6 here we have JJ from Monkeys in Training, who did receive a first place vote in top lane and clocked in at 62 points, which once more is pretty close to where we, if things had been a little bit different, obviously with more than within shooting range of the top 3. So that kind of links an Evil Gambit tier. JJ is split between multiple roles, and that made it very difficult for people to rank this player because he had spent a great deal of time in support. His transition to top lane, his first week kind of came in when we were starting our votes, and he certainly had a fine, fantastic first week in top lane versus Evil Gambit in his most recent series. So it was difficult because new top laner versus kind of more well known as a support in the league. So people either voted this player very highly due to the respect they had for him as a support and a player in general, or low because of that perceived lack of experience or a poor showing in their series as support. Definitely a respected player. That must, that has to be stressed, but for some people that lack of top experience affected their rank here. So
yeah, JJ, as we all know, was a support player, and again, we were working on these rankings before he played his first games as top laner, which he did really well on them with Darius and Urgots. Was against Classic, as he went a little bit on the decline right now, but he did well on them. And again, we just need to see more of him as a top laner rather than a support.
Yeah, absolutely. Clocking in at this, the 7th spot, I believe, again, is Darkness from Cosmic Snowballs. Very difficult player for people to rank. Some people rated this player a 10. Some people rated this player around a 3 or a 4. And very difficult because his victories at the time were against teams that were low in the standings at the time. Astro New Horizon before their roster change, Mad Unicorns, and my own sentiment is that sometimes the ranking of this player was unfair, and if he was playing again, he could certainly prove people wrong in the later part of the split. Most players again around him points wise aren't making the playoffs after all, so it's kind of, at some points this player seems to have a bum rap, but the variations are so different with this player. Some people are going, well, Cosmic as a team, fantastic, kind of in the vein of Lynx. People who tended to put Lynx high had that tendency to almost do the same with Darkness, whereas people who had ranked Evil Gambit higher had a tendency to put players who were like a Power Ranger higher. So that perception of kind of what a top laner should be.
Yeah, and it goes back to Lynx, the whole idea, do you want your top laner to be a carry of the team, or do you want him to understand his role? And I feel like that puts Darkness and Black Jones, who we're going to get to in a little bit, in a bad spot, because people think that they need to be extreme and they need to get the kills and they need to do all that stuff, and they forget that they do so many great stuff in the game that actually just help the way Cosmic plays the game. So definitely, in my opinion, a bit underrated for both top laners, but that's what we're here to see.
Again, I'm a low-key Darkness fan myself. Ended up going up against him in solo queue. So I jokingly say that he kind of has to. He was worried about me because the first time I ran into him, he was lagging, I believe, on Scion, and he was playing Scion jungle. So it was always kind of a bit of a joke, like for me, to have met him before, obviously running into him here on the Rift. Moving up into the next area, we have two that are relatively close. We have Noob the Pleb, again, who has moved around multiple times on Mad Unicorns, as the entire roster of Mad Unicorns has been known to do. And then Black Jones right along with this player. Very similar to the Rakan game. Slash Daddy Soul, a Power Ranger, Indigo area. This area is kind of the Noob the Pleb Black Jones area. And it's interesting because for the most part, the arguments about both of these players from people were pretty similar. So even though many people feel that Mad Unicorns has struggled this split, again, they won this previous week, but the idea was perhaps that this team could have eked out a few more wins. People highlighted this player as kind of somebody who was a bright spot on the team. There's potential to be a great player, easily able to climb up the power rankings for next split. Again, they had been transitioned to mid here. But some people had wondered, well, should this player be prioritized more by the team to enable him as a carry? Because they'd played a great deal of kind of Poppy, Yasuo, other potential kind of carry champions, and had done well compared to the team there. Other people said, well, okay, that's fine and fair. You know, they would put up, you know, a good deal of kills on Yasuo top or anything like that. But ultimately their impact while they were getting the kills wasn't all that huge. So some people said, well, they're the only person that seems to be doing something in some of these games. Other people said, well, if the entire team is trying to like cater around them and make them a focal point, well, maybe you need to do a little bit better on, you know, Yasuo or those carry champions if you are going to be a major win focus on them. So the jury's kind of still out on this player. There was kind of two divergent opinions. The ones going, well, he was a bright spot. Others saying, well, the team kind of focused around him. Maybe he should have been a brighter spot.
Yeah, I feel Noob the Pleb and really everyone in Mad Unicorns is so hard to rank because you don't know if it's a team issue or if it's a personal issue. And Noob the Pleb, I believe, recently switched to mid lane, and he had 2 great games against Toxic Nature. Again, it is Toxic Nature, but he played well, and I think it was really, really hard to rank Noob the Pleb especially.
And again, right directly behind him is Black Jones 88. Again, having gone through a few names, I believe that's kind of where he's fixated for now. And this player, again, transitioned between teams. So it is also important as well to kind of note that. And that perhaps wasn't properly conveyed for myself in regards to the description of this player. In that because he was on Cosmic Snowballs, or currently is, and which is projected to be a playoff team, versus Toxic Nature, which is a team that recently kind of folded this last week. The general thought was this player, when his team is doing well, is able to continue that snowball and won't be a detriment because he'll shut the door on the opposing laner pretty well. But no player was criticized more for their tough games. The games in which they struggled, this player, again, quite frankly, had some of the most strongest critiques in regards to their play. Essentially, some people firmly feel that they'll never, if they're taken out of the game, they're never going to find their way back into it. In short, a player that really struggles the second they are behind. That was very kind of firmly conveyed there for people.
Yeah, and I feel like Black Jones, one of the most underrated players in this league, not because people just don't know how he plays in the game and how his communication is so good in the game. And if you go look at his stats, you don't see how he did in that Illumination series against arguably when we have here is the best top laner. He smacked Lynx left and right. So I don't know. People just need to open up their minds about Black Jones.
All right, and we're nearly coming close to wrapping up the with 2 people left here in regards to top laners. We have the coming in at number 10 here, Sam Gaming Alien from Arctic Gaming, formerly Classic Esports Arrow, 41 points. But it is important to note that this player did receive a first place vote. So I want to make that clear in regards to this. No player at a lower position in this received a first place vote. So it's really interesting. It kind of brings back that kind of dynamic of Lynx, where somebody voted Lynx the worst top laner in the league. Somebody also voted Sam Gaming Alien the best top laner in the league. And I also want to clarify this because I guarantee someone's going to trash talk it was not Sam Gaming Alien who gave themselves this vote. So just have to make that clear, because naturally someone will bring up something in regards to control wards and that particular meme. But
you're down a slippery slope.
but people are split on this player, because the fact of the matter is, their first 3 series, they went 3-1 before they were replaced on Classic Esports Arrow. So they have a high winning percentage, higher than a lot of other people in this league, before he was taken away from that position. It's difficult because this player's style, some people will judge this player based on the words in the community or whatever. Kind of that aspect of kind of the meme aspect, but their stats were certainly not that bad. People can make the argument, well, it was against weaker teams. That's a fair critique. But some people do hold this player in higher regard. Consistency is a question for some with this player. So usually, again, if they struggle, they really struggle.
Yeah, and I feel like Sam Gaming Alien's getting the Reddit's banter treatment right now, the Discord banter treatment right now, just because like how he's outspoken, and that does not help his case. I think he's better than this ranking. Maybe not first place as someone may have said, but I think he's better than this ranking.
And wrapping up, again, in the final spot here is the Trinity from Toxic Nature. It's difficult for some people to say this player should be put any higher, given their showing in the one series that they saw them, but there's hopes by everyone this player could climb higher by the end of, I'm going to put next split, because naturally, again, the team has now disbanded for the remainder of this split. So once more, somebody had to coming in the final spot. That was the Trinity from Toxic Nature. Not a ton of experience, probably not too much time talking about them, obviously, because the team has disbanded here. But all right, so moving on to junglers here. Again, we're going to have the new Jensen come and step in here, the mid laner from Redemption. He was fortunate enough to come in at the right time, so we'll include him here. Welcome, Mr. Jensen. Again, the person who can be understood in neither official language of Canada. Welcome.
Thanks for having me, dude.
All right, so moving on to junglers. Jungle, similar to last split, and I'm pretty sure that all 3 of us can concede, it's a role largely influenced by 2 things. First of all, how players performed against them in their particular series. More so, like mid lane, people can develop kind of this respect of a variety of players. You know, you can respect a player even if you whip up on them a little bit in mid lane. Whereas with junglers, if all of your lanes are having a bad game, you might put up a 1-6-2 in game 1, you know, a 3-4-2 in game 2, have a brutal series because your team has a brutal series laning wise, and people go, that was the best jungler in the league, or that's the person that people think is a top 3 jungler in the league. Are you kidding me? That's happened a fair bit. There's a clear tiering system, obviously, between the top and kind of the remainder of the players. There was that aspect of kind of the hit and miss. More players kind of fell in around a particular area where they would get, you know, 10s on a few ballots, 6s on a few ballots, maybe a 4 here and there, and it created kind of a big clump of junglers right in the middle. Typically, the lower ranked individuals maintain their positions, so there was very few aberrations. If you were getting consistently 4 for your points, that was pretty much within, you know, you would get a 5 here, a 3 here, but it wasn't. The lower group was maintained on the lower group. The middle group was incredibly varied. The top kind of usually stayed a little bit static. There's a distinct presence in first in regards to the jungler, but note, there was a lot of first place votes in this that were spread around on people. So there's a lot of volatility in this, and it comes down to the question of, for Iron, Bronze, Silver, what are the characteristics and beliefs as to what makes a good jungler? Some people will feel that, okay, you need to focus on counter jungling, picking very strong junglers, snowballing your advantage there. Some people will say, well, no, you need to pick somebody that's more supportive, like a Sejuani, or an Ivern, or a Zac. And if you enable your laners, that's what makes a good jungler. That ability to affect lanes. So perhaps that kind of contrast between affecting the person directly opposite you in your role versus, supportive and kind of affecting the lanes. Coming in at number 1, albeit not by as much as previously discussed, is Z-Mags from Illumination Valiant. Many people have felt that this split is kind of Z-Mag's coming out party. Many other junglers are compared to him. In regards to aggressive junglers, this player is kind of the gold standard for this, as well as team synergy. Very aggressive champ pool, Xin Zhao, Jax, Vi, players top 3, kind of focus. Made him a force to be reckoned with. And combined up with Lynx, Lynx playing the tanks, Z-Mags playing the kind of aggro junglers, these two again play very well off each other. Key cog in illumination strategy and win conditions. That being said, in contrast, no other player had as few first place votes who was at the top of their role. So, Z-Mags.
Z-Mags is, I'm going to say this, and it's going to sound a little bit weird at the beginning, but he's the best carry jungler in the league. And once we discuss the other players, you'll understand my point here. But I think he's good at playing with the carries, playing with that Jax. He stole a Baron against us, which was very, very, very important for his team. So he's definitely aggressive, and he knows his play style, and he makes sure Illumination Valiant works around him.
I agree, dude. Honestly, what about Z-Mags is really striking about me is whenever you see Z-Mags, he's never going to be the guy that makes the play or does the big highlight play other than stealing a Baron, of course. He's really the guy that's going to play around his team really well. He's going to help his laners get a lead, get an advantage, and in the slightest anything, a CS lead, a kill, or even a roam or an assist, anything. He's not going to be the guy that really is going to carry your team through victory. But if your team has any type of advantage in the game, a goal lead, anything, he's going to be taking that lead and make it 10 times worse, for sure.
And I think that the general thought, and I think we've all kind of come around to this, is that there's no player more dangerous at level 2 or level 3 in regards to the early ganks. Z-Mags has become very proficient at the early lane gank that I think basically no other jungler in this league currently does with any other degree of effectiveness. Like this player, he's the king of the level 2 or level 3 gank, whereas other junglers usually will shy away from that until later. Moving on to the number 2 position, we've got Crow Theo of Cosmic Snowballs with 1 first place vote. Very supportive jungler. Again, I'm sure we'll be discussing that in a second. In regards to their team's playstyle, they know their job, they know their role, they do it well. Very effective at snowballing leads in a different way than Z-Mags, which is excellent for the style that their team plays. That being said, the other critique that people are going to have about supportive junglers, this player, because of their champ pool in general, even though they've got stuff like Jarvan, certainly within their grasp, maybe not able to turn around games in the same breath as some other junglers can, but the impact that this player has is not easily measured by statistics. Again, very well known as well for their Ivern. You're going to look at an Ivern score in a lot of games and go, well, but what impact do they really have? And I've often felt that champion, again, is very difficult for people to understand the impact of in a post-game lobby, or if you just looked at the stats of the series. So, coming in at number 2, very close, Crow Theo.
Yeah, you're coming in my playground now. My boy Crow, I'll say this, I said Z-Max was the best carry jungler. I'm going to say Crow is the best support jungler in the entire league. And it's for the simple reason that literally Crow will do anything that it takes for his team to win. He does not care what he's looked at by other players. He does not care what he's looked at by other teams, and he plays champions that only work because he wants the team to work. If you look at his freaking rank, he's a Jarvan one trick. But when you go in and he's playing in our games, he's playing Ivern, he's playing Sejuani, he's playing Nunu. He's playing whatever it takes for the team to win, and I love my boy Crow.
Yeah, Crow is excellent. Honestly, Crow Tio is like, for many he's called the supportive jungle, but honestly, I feel like he's really aggressive. Living in the enemy's jungle a lot of the times, like he's playing the Iverns and the Jarvan more to like help his team, carry and let his carries do the job. But honestly, he's one of the most aggressive jungler, really. Like ganking a lot, being in the enemy's jungle, invading, taking camps, and getting his leads on his own.
Yeah, as the votes kind of continued, depending on how people perceived, the gap between ZMags and Crow Theo kept getting closer and closer as the votes kind of came in. So definitely I believe the closest between the two for first and second. Jumping down to number 3, we've got Rumble My Bumhole with 2 first place votes from Astro New Horizon. This was largely prior to their series versus Illumination Valiant, and so just so that people are aware, they were still relatively had a small experience base in this league to draw on for people to vote. People had largely positive things to say about this player in regards to them being proactive and smart in the jungle. Might have comparatively little experience, but they also had impressed. People said, well, maybe that this player is the true kind of hidden weapon of Astro New Horizon, and people are hoping that the promise they have shown this split continues. Speaking for myself, Astro New Horizon from the earlier parts of the splits to this part of the split looks like an entirely different team, and I do think the jungle change was really important for them.
Yeah, and Rumble is he's a tricky one as well. I'm a fan of Rumble, but I think he's overrated here because of his games. The games he was playing against Toxic and against Mad Unicorns, and bad time for both of those teams. Well, he did good against Illumination, not too great, but he did good against. I think I want to see more of Rumble because he has so much potential.
Yeah, I agree with that. I haven't seen much of Rumble yet. I know definitely he turned the things around for Astro when they were 0-3. So like he came in and we saw a difference in the jungle. He was more aggressive, ready to pull the trigger and dive towers. I mean, there's nothing much that we've seen from this player other than maybe the Elimination series where it kind of went wrong. I mean, I'm excited to see more of this guy, and hopefully he can not die to Krugs again.
I knew that was coming. Oh, I knew that was coming. So in general, with the top 3, we've got kind of the number 1, perhaps, carry jungler and ZMags, number 1 carry or number 1 support Tiv jungler in Crow Theo, number 2 carry jungler in Astro New Horizons Rumble My Bumhole. Now the number 2 kind of perceived support jungler in the Doc 1992 from Monkeys in Training, who also received 1 first place vote. So once more, all these top 4 people had a first place vote. And as well, just spoiler, the next person will as well. Some people highlight this player as one of the core reasons for Monkeys in Training's success, but also a reason for their slump this split. If their lanes succeed, they'll be exactly what's needed to contribute to that success, but don't have the capacity, probably because of what they were put on champ-wise, to pull their team back from the brink if the lanes are struggling. Viewed as a smart jungler, but in contrast, because of being put on largely supportive junglers, not viewed as being very creative in regards to their pathing.
Yeah, I think Doug is actually a really, really smart jungler. I don't know if he's a full-on support jungler, but he's definitely known how to empower people like Tracton and MIT. And I think these top 4 right here, ZMax, Theo, Rumble My Bumhole, and the Doc, are what you look at for the best junglers. except for one person, I'm gonna get mad at people for Doki for not rating Doki as highly. But yeah, really like the doc.
Yeah, I agree with Imran and you guys. It's hard work for the dog because whenever you look at this guy, you don't really think of him straight away because on this team he has Straxon, JJ, Fishing, Ball Slap, who are incredibly good. And like when you look at this team, you look at these guys to carry and not the dog. But the dog is doing just like he's doing his job. He's maybe not doing like what other jungles like the big plays or trying to do something for his team. But like whenever his team is gonna be winning, this guy is just gonna be an addition to make this win easier.
Coming out at number 5. Again, we've got Doki, the ever polarizing figure, finds himself in this position of and a first place bout. He's been successful in every series he's played thus far, and even though none until now have ranked him number 1, Doki's found himself in the top 3 on the majority of kind of people's ballots. So he floats in and out. A good measuring stick for the junglers of the league, similar to many others around him. Again, in the top 6, he secured a first place vote.
I think it's criminal that we have to keep this low. This guy, people are gonna be talking about no flash, her. But you guys don't understand. This guy's a carry jungler. He's not a support jungler. He's freaking both, and he does it at the same time with a pick ult and Moo. And you don't even know where he's coming from. He's gonna TP behind the enemy laner. You see him coming because he has freaking TP, and he's gonna kill everybody, and he's gonna give the kills to his team. So he is such an interesting jungle, and I feel like people are horrible for letting him this low. Like, how can you guys do this?
I totally agree. I'd see Doki being a little bit higher for sure, no doubt. Of course, he has the like weird plays and of course the no flash thing, but Doki is just the persona. He's gonna be the guy that like he plays exactly like the Doc would. Like he plays tanks and Moo, Sejuani, or he was gonna play a tank, and he's gonna be aggressive, but towards the laners, he's always gonna do the right thing. He's gonna get caught. He's gonna do mistake that like no other jungles would, but like he's always a big part of why his team is winning, and there's no doubt Doki should be higher in this list.
All right, moving on. To the 6th spot, we have Poxy or Miss Cocoon, or even a name before that because they changed their name 3 times this split. Formerly or presently on the roster of Classic Esports Arrow, they received 1 first place vote. They are at 60 points. Although this player has taken a step back in recent weeks, and certainly the question, the thing that lingered on people's minds was the Katarina jungle, so that certainly needs to be, put out here. People did give them a fair bit of credit in the series before, as they were viewed as an aggressive jungler who impacted the map. Their points varied substantially, however, as it was completely unable for people to get that Katarina jungle game out of their heads. People know the player's game, but as the split has gone on, the perception of this player surely has changed. And that could be because of Classic Esports' kind of early season success against teams that perhaps were not likely to make playoffs. But fact of the matter is, coming in at number 6 here, we've got Poxy.
Yeah, and the Katarina jungle just left such a bad taste in my mouth. Like I don't know what to talk about with this player, so I'm just gonna move it on to Tristan.
It's kind of the same here. I'm sad because whenever we got to play Classic with Redemption, he wasn't the starting jungler. But I mean, it's hard to rate him lower because in the end he still won 3 games, and still it's not against the bad teams. He racked up those wins like against good teams. Of course, the Katarina jungle lets like a salty kind of taste, but like, I mean, he still is, I think, one of the great junglers in this league. I don't think you could really rate him higher or lower in this list.
And again, kind of continuing on here, I'll admit kind of my shock. Coming in at number 7, I believe, is Tool from Redemption, who also received a first place vote. This is where I would toss in the thinking emoji here. Capable player, but not one that inherently stands out. Simply a league average jungler. Did their job effectively, good communication, but hasn't played in forever. Most votes had this player kind of firmly in the middle with like a 5 or 6, and so they were a good measuring point for the other junglers, likely a product of Redemption's strong lanes in the earlier parts, according to a few players, and I think that that's certainly a fair statement.
Yeah, Tool is, to be honest, I'm going to say straight, I don't think he's good. And if he's on, I think he's getting carried by 2 amazing laners that we already have in this podcast, with Tristan and Feathers. So I really don't think if Tool is not on Redemption that he even gets this high in the ranking.
Thanks for the ego flattering, Ibram. Definitely Tool. I think
that happened to me, dude.
Tool is definitely one of those junglers where you wonder, is he really good or is he just living on his laner's back? I think it's kind of true, but I mean, he does deserve some recognition. I mean, I remember when we started playing with him in the early season, he's probably the most aggressive jungler there is in this league. I remember this guy diving 2 towers to get a single kill and die right after. And it's not in any place it should be a good play, but like, he's really aggressive and he does deserve like some recognition. But I do agree that he's probably living, and his performance are probably off the back of his laners.
In general, my general feeling is that this player has about 10 more points than they should, and I even say that as a member of the team. In general, I would sort him in this group, but I would also kind of knock people down a little bit. I would put him right along with the next person that we're about to talk about here, Claudius Rifton of Mad Unicorns. Some people feel, again, that this player isn't bad. They've been, by and large, in jungle the entire split for Mad Unicorns, which is the exception rather than the norm. But perhaps they're just a victim of the lanes that they're given. There's a lot of transition for Mad Unicorns. Doesn't make it easy to develop synergy. In and out of the starting lineup, Claudius is starting to have, a little bit more time there. Some people said, well, Mad Unicorns didn't have the best laners, and sometimes, ultimately, the jungler pays the price of that. So it kind of applies to their other jungler here, who is listed, Kuragano, who has been in many lanes as well. Just kind of had to get tossed here for a few of them. But this player is also one that some said makes the team look better. So it's kind of an interesting dynamic in the sense that some people are going, well, he pays the price for Mad Unicorn's laners, but he also does a little bit enough to make them look better. So people certainly had a lot of feelings in regards to this entire lane swapping of Mad Unicorns, and Claudius is kind of the individual who people took that area to discuss him as a result.
Yeah, and like, I really want the Magic to figure themselves out, because when they do, they're gonna be good. And Claudius Rifton just shows that. Like, when he was switching with like Kuragano, you don't understand their whole identity, but I really want Mad Unicorns to understand what's happening and pull out.
Yeah, I mean, Mad Unicorns, when I did the power rankings with them, it was kind of weird, because I was looking at the jungle and I was trying to see like which one would be better for the team, and honestly I couldn't tell. When you look at the stats, they pretty much have the same stats. Like if you see Kuragano or Claudius, they're pretty much at the same place every time. And it's, I don't know, Mad Unicorns, if they could figure out what's going wrong on their team, I think they could be a top team for sure. They have incredible players, but something in that team makes them I don't know, not mash and not win, and it could come from the jungle and maybe settle on one of them.
And again, I think that this is the sleeper team for next split. Mad Unicorns, I think, is going to surprise quite a few people, because people are always going to, I feel, sleep on them a little bit more than they should because of this last split. I think they're going to come out extremely focused and be a different team and be up near the top earlier. So rather than feeling like they've got to continually make ground up. Kuragano, again, of Mad Unicorns is just slightly below Claudius. So, again, they kind of grouped them together. People felt that in the case of very similar discussion, they or their team, whether it's the junglers of Mad Unicorns or Mad Unicorns themselves, make it difficult for their lanes to get ahead, generating a rating that perhaps is unfair. And obviously, because they played a lot of roles, they might be a victim of role swapping. Because, again, they're stepping into roles that they perhaps are not as comfortable on. But they could also be a victim of the rest of the team's role swapping.
Yeah, I feel like Kuragano is a big victim of the role swapping happening around the Mad Unicorns. And maybe if I'm gonna say that big C word again, consistency. If there was some consistency around that area, we'll see him a little bit better.
Yeah. They need to settle on a 5-man roster and stick to it. I think Mad Unicorns could do great things with it.
Coming in at number 10, we have Bishop of Arctic Gaming. Little data available on the player. Again, only had one series, and even before that, the original start of rating this player, we had no data to draw on. So that's probably why they were given such a low mark. Obviously, that can always be foolish of people to do, but you have to eventually kind of rate what you know. People didn't know anything about this player, no evidence, thus they weren't given too high of marks. And just to wrap things up as well, Mike's World coming in at 11th place of Toxic Nature. This player, more than others, had their KDA called out with a sub-1 KDA. Some people said, well, stats don't tell the entire story, but
they do.
But people felt that with the KDA, people found it really hard to ignore this in regards to this player, even putting them below somebody who hadn't really played yet in the split. So
I agree. Honestly, Bishop, I haven't seen him. The stats are kind of, they're not that great, but he's played one series, so there's still time for him to show us. When you look at Mike's World, I think he's been there for every single game of Toxic Nature, and I remember when I look at the stats for him, he was at 0.95 KDA. There's not much one you can say. He's barely been able to have an even games per week, so I don't know.
I find it hard to talk about these players without being mean, so I'm just going to skip them.
Yeah, I again, sometimes that's just the nature of the lower people, and I certainly hope that we're able to talk about these players positively, because there are some bright spots. It's just because of the top-heavy nature that at some points it's difficult when you're getting down kind of this low to have stuff that isn't primarily critiques. So, thus, we are 52 minutes into this, and we're only on the mid-laners, which is great because we're having a lot of great discussion. Moving forward into the mid-laners. Mid-lane, like class split, was the closest point-wise between many of the top players. Variety of teams and players that had substantial point variations between balances. Some people would receive high marks on 3 ballots, be lower than the group on 2. So, if you were on the top on a couple ones, you'd be 7 or 8 on the next one. And so there was a lot of people that kind of came in at around 9 points kind of per ballot, something like that. One certainly gets the feeling similar to last split that there's a lot of talent here. And the general feeling I would argue is that in the case of the top 5 here, people feel that any one of the top 5 can be the best mid laner in the league on any given day. And the tiering system kind of begins to emerge slowly over the course of this, but it creates that kind of strange pattern. The order seems stable, but it really actually isn't, because, people would have somebody that they thought was the best and rank somebody in the bottom of the top 5. The next person would think that person was the best and drop the other person into the bottom of the top 5. So, the first place votes were pretty confined, but ultimately they're in contrast to the junglers, who there was 7 junglers who got a first place vote. In the case of this, one of the highest, again, I don't want to talk about him because he's going to talk about him, I'm sure, more than he should. Number 1, we have our fellow individual here on the podcast, the new Jensen, coming in with 6 first place votes and 94 points. One of the highest point scores, but not the highest point scorer in the league. There, I'm talking you down. This player is admittedly one of the ones who talks a big game in regards to their play. You might not be able to understand them in either official language, but they do talk a lot and have that tendency to back it up. The vast majority of ballots did have this player in the top 3, but that doesn't mean that they certainly cannot be outplayed. Capable and should be feared, but not invincible. So, again, not a ton of critiques, but also that general feeling that people felt definitely among the best. You have to discuss them as among the best, but also that feeling that, you know, other mid laners who are having a good day can certainly win against this player. So
I'm gonna mention my view first, and then I'll give Tristan the mic. As a captain against I'm drafting against New Jensen, which his name is Tristan, that's why I keep calling him Tristan, guys. So it's really, really hard to ban anything against him because he has a champion ocean. It's not a pool, it's an ocean. And, like, you have to ban the Yasuo because no team can play around the Yasuo if you leave it there. But other than that, it's hard to do anything because you know he'll play anything from Nico to Victor to whatever because he just does it all.
Don't let him play Zoe. Pro tip: if you get him on Zoe, you're okay.
It's kind of awkward to having to talk about myself in the first place and having feathers talk about me, but also flaming me half of the time. I mean, I guess for myself, I'll say that I agree with the fact that we run talking about my champion pool. I do play a lot of champion, and I think this season, if we don't count the Yasuo games that I played twice, I played a different champion in each games, and so I agree it must be hard for people to ban or play against me. It's honestly, I don't know what else to say about myself. I mean, I win lane, I try to help my team as much as I can, and I guess it has been working up to now.
But, okay, just so we can get this very quickly before we can move on. Would you agree with the general statement that there are plenty of mid laners who can go toe to toe with you in any given week or close to?
I'd agree that there's some mid laners who could. Yeah. I don't agree that any mid laners could. Honestly, I think the top 3 that we see right now could easily be able to match with me in lane.
Okay, moving on to number 2. This one again is what is going to be one of my favorites to discuss. I fully admit that. I'm looking forward to this. 2 second place votes. We've got Fishing for Honor, aka JT, coming in with 8 points below. Many people said this is a good player whose stats clearly don't reflect the impact they have in their games. Somebody who's clearly among the best mid laners in the league, but obviously was struggling a little bit with their mental state a couple weeks back. If they get a boost of confidence, it's not hard to see them be the best mid laner in the league by far. And they seem to do well with any chance they get. Now, obviously, we do have to address the question, is this player going to be a starter for Monkeys in training going forward? The fact of the matter is, we have them listed as the number 2 mid laner. That comes from votes. That wasn't, me actively placing this. So there's a ton of respect, but there's also been a point where this player has seen the bench. So
yeah, Fishing for Honor is very, very interesting to rank because he's not even a starter technically. And when you have someone that's a sub being this high, I don't know what to say on it, to be pretty much. I think he has good KDAs, he has good stats in the league. I don't know what's happening with him.
I agree. It's awkward placing Fishing. I for sure would place him high. He's definitely a strong laner. He's not gonna be the one dying 24/7 to a laner. He could be losing lane because of CS advantage, but he's not gonna be the guy that you're gonna see like die twice and 3 times and 4 times and be like, yeah, we lost because mid lane totally in. That's not gonna be Fishing. There is the point where you see Fishing getting benched for ball. I don't think this means much. Of course, like mental state could be a struggle for this player, getting benched and such. But I still totally believe that this player can be the best or one of the best for sure, and he should not be underestimated at all.
Well, and again, the one thing I appreciate with that is the statement that I would argue nobody underestimated this player in regards to the rankings. The fact that the number 2 mid laner is somebody who has seen the bench earlier this split is what makes this endlessly fascinating. People gave this player, they knew his name. There is no getting around that in regards to the point scores. And he got 2 first place votes. So out of 10 people, 20% of people said this is the best mid laner in the league. And this is a player who's seen the bench. It's just staggering. It's really interesting for me to see that. Moving on to number 3. Again, the remaining kind of 2 votes went to Illumination Valiant's Swaggy P5580. General thought, again, right up with fishing. So 1 point only separating the two. Excellent macro play, works incredibly well with their team. A foundation of Illumination Valiant this split. Rightly deserves to be mentioned among the best mid laners in the league this split. Adept on multiple champions, and while other mid laners, again, people would argue might be stronger in one lane or the other, this player's very strong in all areas. So it really empowers their team in a variety of areas. Certainly isn't going to hurt you. Certainly has to be mentioned as very good. Again, some people just put this player a little bit lower because they wanted, a little bit more solo kill presence, I guess. Like that as an argument. But when you're that capable on stuff like Orianna and all of that, it's hard to punish somebody for that.
Yeah, I think Swaggy P is probably one of the most consistent guys in the league as a mid laner, just because of the way he plays with Illumination, and it's a team that continues to be consistent. And when you have a mid laner that embodies your entire personality, it really fits in well.
Yeah, Swaggy P, I'm becoming meme at this point for the essay I've wrote in general chat about him. I don't think in nowhere he should be underestimated. I think this guy, if he plays against any mid laner who is under him right now in the list, he's gonna be winning his lane. But whenever it comes to the good laners and the ones that are on top of him, it feels like he's not gonna be the one dominating or getting leads or anything. He's gonna be the one that's gonna wait for the game, gonna wait for his team to initiate a fight and get the big 4-man ulti we've seen in stream games a lot of the times. So it feels like when you talk about the best mid laner, I'm looking at someone who can do everything well. And this guy, I don't feel like he's the best laner, so to speak.
Well, again, perfectly fine. But I do think it is quite interesting. I think the fact of the top 3 being, currently at this point, the 3 teams that are likely to clinch playoffs, that to me again perhaps is indicative of the need for an effective mid laner. Coming in number 4, we're going back to monkeys in training here with Ball Slap. Surely a capable mid laner, holds his own against many players, given a fair amount of respect. Again, monkeys in training occupying the number 2 and number 4 spots here. Capacity to defeat any player in the league, rated in kind of that same group here, a little bit lower than Fishing and Swaggy P. The only knock again originally was starting time, and it looks like this player will have it. Obviously, with 2 of the top 4 mid laners, only 1 can start. So it's, one of these players again is going to have to suffer for the benefit of the other.
Yeah, but Ball Slap, to be honest, I'm gonna say he should not be this highly ranked. I think Fishing is better. Maybe Fishing doesn't fit the team better than Ball Slap, but I don't see Ball Slap being this high on my own power rankings.
I agree. I think I would have seen Feeney or Dala being a little bit higher compared to Ball Slap. I feel like when you talk about Ball Slap, you just about to talk about Fishing for Honor 2.0. Honestly, it's just Fishing with just everything a little less better than how Fishing is doing it. They have a different champion pool. Ball Slap playing a lot of Ari, and Belkaz. He's certainly a really good laner. For myself, I've been to play against him. He's really strong. He's really passive. It's really hard to get onto him in lane and even in team fights. But I feel like he's just not yet to the level of what Fishing can do.
All right, again, perfectly fine. Moving on, we've got in number 5. Again, the guy's been under 3 names. Dalot, Finney, Vaporizer again. Klasky Sports Arrow, now over to Arctic Gaming. Very effective player at solo killing and gaining advantages over the opposing laner. And their ability on Assassin Champs should be feared. That being said, again, one of the most substantial critiques in the entire league came onto this player. They struggle more at team fights than most players in mid lane. They have little to no impact in and prior to team fights. A force to be reckoned with in lane. And some people obviously consider him to be the only consistent part of inconsistent teams this split. But certainly there was a growing feeling of either this player is great in lane and horrible out of lane, and that was something that kind of came through in regards to their rankings. Some people rated him the second highest. Some people had him as low as 3 or 4. And that balance is what put, more consistent scores like ball slap or whatever above this player pretty distinctly.
Yeah, I'm actually going to say Dallas is probably the most interesting mid laner in this whole group. Not because of his power, it's because we see him being consistent in bad teams. That was one of my big points for having him higher than his ranking right now. But he has good KDAs. If you look at his stats, they look good. Maybe I need to actually see him play live, but from what I see from stats, he looks a lot better than this ranking.
I mean, I have played against him, and I think it's underrated a little bit right now, because I would definitely put him higher. I personally put him as the 3rd or even 2nd, I think. He's definitely good. His team put a lot of resources into him because they know he's really good at soaking people and winning the lane. So his team put a lot of resources into him. Sadly, I think it's really when it comes to team fight, if you're not able to use those resources you were given and carry the team fights, it's harder for you to be rated higher. I think he's underrated, but definitely not one of the best, because in team fight you need to be the one pulling the trigger and killing people and doing stuff, and yet we have not seen that from him.
All right, again, moving into the number 6 role, we've got Best Support BOL, formerly War Support AL, from Cosmic Snowballs.
Yeah, update you on that. He's just changed his name to Daddy Atlas. I'm not joking. This has just been given.
One sec. Some other stupid name. There we go. So now that that's been fixed, Cosmic Snowball's mid laner, whatever name they choose to go by, again, nothing but love for you, buddy, honestly, comes in at the number 6 spot. Clear statement. This player plays a particular style in all of their games and champions. The results of their success this split speak for themselves, and they should be given their proper respect. People are also looking for diversity. In their eyes, they have a champion ocean. Some people view it as a puddle because of the general champions that this player, by and large, has played this split, with a lot of Orianna and Morgana being kind of the forefront. So, certainly people have an opinion. This player has an opinion that kind of contrasts these two.
Yeah, you say people have an opinion. I say people have the wrong opinion. What are you guys doing? He's not the type of laner that you look at and you're like, oh my god, he gets the solo kills. Oh my god, he destroys like Jensen is. And you look at him, you understand that again he plays the style that Cosmic needs. You guys are crazy for putting him this low. He'll show you guys off.
I agree. He should be a little bit higher. I feel like his ocean champ pool that people talk about, I'm not really agreeing on it. I guess it's because I haven't seen it yet. But all I've seen him really perform really well on is the Morgana and the Orianna. And I mean, it's showing that people are starting to respect the Orianna and banning it. And he's defaulting to the Morgana. Morgana is seeing some nerf now. I hope we can see some other stuff from him, like some more interesting stuff, and not maybe like their big carry mid laner, but something that's gonna allow him to shine a little bit more in this mid lane.
Again, this is where I'll toss in my opinion. I think that this is one of the most most criminal points scores in the entire league. I think that this player was extremely underrated by a lot of people. I think that in the playoffs, he's going to bust out something that people are not ready and prepared for. And if he performs well in that, I think he's going to make a lot of people look foolish. That's the long and short of it. I think that sometimes you don't have to change what works, and the Oriana and Morgana have worked for this player for a fair bit. So why would you give teams a chance to prepare for other things? Also, again, if those champions are what works for your strategy, I think this player is getting unfairly punished, and frequently people will just go, well, this person does it better. Yes, we do need to move on to the next individual. I believe this player indeed did drop from Astro New Horizon, and I do want to clarify that we don't have their replacement, Showmaker. He wasn't listed in regards to this because he had not played a series yet, and he had just played Game 3 this last week for Astro New Horizon. So we'll cover this player, and this isn't to say that we are sleeping on Showmaker in any way, shape, or form, just simply because we had 11 mid laners, and this player was listed as the option. They played more games. So we have Amazing X, a player a lot of teams are watching closely, as they felt that this player could easily step into being one of the best mid laners in the league and someone to be feared. They had comparatively small experience in the league at that time, leaving plenty for growth. Again, it looks like they're looking for a new team. There's optimism, but some teams want to see if this player can keep performing at this level.
Yeah, Amazing X is... we tried him out for Cosmic. Didn't work out. We chose to go with Thresh. I think he's a good player. Just needs to get in a better team with better consistency.
It's gonna be awkward for me to talk about this guy because I haven't seen nothing from him. I've seen his stats from the games he played. He played a lot of Lissandra. They have some good KDAs on it. I mean, I think it's gonna be unfortunate for Astro to lose this guy because he did look like really a good player. I hope we can see him in the future in another league or another team in Zero.gg.
Again, just trying to help him out here again. Looking again. He'll be in the gold. He could potentially be in the gold league next split. Could be an important pickup for a team. We have a substantial drop off here. So this is where again the bottom drops out in regards to a big difference on tiers. So we've covered off kind of these first 5, 6, 7 people. We jump 15 points down. So huge difference here. We've got Dream Unforgiven from the Mad Unicorns, player that had a lot of varying opinions about them. Few teams rated this player above average. Other ballots had him near the very bottom, even below players who barely played. Surprising, speaks to the varied opinions on him. Some people see this player as a clear threat. Some see them as no threat at all. And some say, well, this is the epitome of average. So beauty is in the eye of the beholder with this player. Again, they've kind of moved Noob the Pleb, I believe, into mid lane here, but Dream Unforgiven had spent a lot of time here, and as such, that's why he was put into this area.
Yeah, I'm actually the one that literally called it the definition of average, because that's what you see from this player. You see average, and that's really all I see. As a mid laner, he's average in my eyes.
I agree, it's hard to rate him too. Honestly, the game I've seen from him, it's either he pops off and really does good, or he just does nothing and kind of just dies out in the mid lane. I think it's a bit of underrating him, saying he's just the definition of average. I think he has the potential to be a really good mid laner in this league. He just hasn't shown us what he really can do just yet.
Yeah, and I think that's a fair statement for a lot of people around this area. Number 9, again, we got Methan Sparlow. Again, having dropped from the league, toxic nature, so we won't spend a whole lot of time. Capable player this split. People just simply perhaps wanted more. saying they hadn't really won a game or series yet where they've seized control and made people really remember their name. People may be underrating this player. So I'm also going to cover number 11 here, Heroic Valley's Toxic Nature, because again, that is a part in our group. Placed lower by and large due to struggling against the other mid laners and not being a starter, can make a return next split, played hard games on hard champions, so sometimes perhaps it couldn't solely be on their shoulders. So in 9th and 11th, we have the Toxic Nature kind of mid laners here.
Yeah, Toxic Nature is just had some weird stuff going on with position swaps. I'm not going to spend too much time on them because I can't wait to get to ADCs.
I agree. I won't spend too much time either. All I'm going to say is Melon, Sparlow, and Heroic Valley are, I think, sadly, they are probably the weakest laners we've seen in 0GG this split. Does that mean they're the worst players? I don't think so. I think they could probably get good and become like amongst the best, but for now, you have to put them at the bottom.
And again, just wrapping things up, we have King Darlow of Arctic Gaming at 24. Simply comes from a lack of experience. Many players may not know about them yet. Could easily ascend their rankings sooner rather than later. We won't talk any more about that. You know, hopefully some of the players kind of near lower or near the bottom, you know, step up next split. That there's certainly that possibility. But obviously when we get down to kind of this lower aspect, we don't want to, you know, bog everyone down with critiques and stuff like that, because once more, a couple series may not and should not define a player. Anyways, now again, we're getting into the meat of the next area, AD carries. There's no two ways around this. This is what, you know, a lot of people are going to be discussing about in positional power rankings for some time. No matter how it's done, people have passionate opinions on this. So, quite simply, a cliff exists in this position in regards to points. Distinct difference. You're going to see a massive difference between, you know, the top 4, the 5th ranked player, and all the rest. There's no two ways around that. So, many teams in playoff positions presently are rated quite highly. A lot of those first place votes are confined to those few. More so than in other lanes, this position creates the sense that it's hard for the others to climb up and attack kind of those top 5, so to say, especially. And even the argument could be made, and certainly we'll have to have that discussion, if the top or if the 5th place person can leap up into that top 4. It's hard for people to climb up, especially evident in the top 3. Majority of first place votes are on 2 players. One player had simply consistent marks and is right up there. Clearly, people took the carry part of AD carry very seriously here. Number 1, with 4 first place votes, we have J-Doggish, or JD from Redemption, with 94 points. Their statistics this split are nothing short of impressive, played very effectively to their team's win conditions, and seem to know the role exceptionally well. Many have said that he's a surprise of this split thus far, big part of the team's success, for they simply haven't struggled yet this split. So
yeah, you guys can talk more about J-Doggish because he is in Redemption and you guys are his teammates, but I'm just gonna say how he has barely struggled in any games this split. The guy is consistent, and that's exactly what his name means to me.
I can finally talk about JD. JD is, in my opinion, the surprise of this split. Honestly, no one expected him to be this high in AD carry list. I expected him to be actually like in the mid, and if not bottom tier. So seeing him at 94 points and like 4 first place vote is actually incredible. This player just does what he needs to be. He goes into lane, bullies the enemy AD carry, gets insane amount of CS. He doesn't die. He just does his job. If you can just give this player like a critique, I'd say is set up to be this way. You know, jungle attention a lot of the time on Redemption will be towards mid lane, top lane, and not towards bottom. Maybe it should kind of switch to see like more attention putting bottom. And otherwise, another critique I'd say is just he or flash over a wall. I think.
I mean, let's admit that there's no doubt that is in the top 5 highlights of the split in regards to that.
I love you, JD, by the way.
I don't want to go too far into this. I think in general, the one thing that JD does that other laners, for better or worse, don't do quite the same. The unique thing about JD is he comes late into fights. And so he is very effective at coming in, getting that advantage, sweeping up all of the remaining stuff in the fight at the right time. And that certainly reflects highly in his KDA. Rarely is he the one getting dove on. So when a team fight starts, he's able to get back, he sets up in his proper position, and he rains down the necessary damage. And again, in contrast to other ones, he arrives later to fights than a lot of the other AD carries around here, and that usually thus far has worked to his advantage. So coming in at number 2, must be stressed that this is a tie for number 2 for 2 and 3, but just listed here. Traxon with 1 first place vote from Monkeys in Training, 89 points. Even when his team has struggled, Traxon turns in impressive performances. Every week he's brought consistency and given his team a chance to win. Perhaps the most consistent AD carry in the sense, if you are on the enemy team, you have to deal with Traxon. Makes teams afraid of him, and with good reason. So,
yeah. Traxon is so good, and when you have a player like that has a signature pick like Traxon's Jinx, that's when you know they're a good player. Traxon is so high in my rankings. In my rankings, I put him number 3, but I'll discuss that number 2. I think Traxon has been really good, really consistent, just a great player overall.
Yeah, definitely. Traxon, whenever you go against MIT, you look at the Anivia from GT, but you have to look at this guy. He has a lot of champions, and whenever he's in lane, he's going to have a lot of CS, he's going to pull a lot of lead from it, and he is definitely one of the best. If, arguments can be said that he is the best player in AD carry for this league. Up to now, maybe he has been struggling a little bit recently, but his performance are still really good.
And again, so looking at Traxon was consistently rated high. So the person again who's tied with him again, Kaneki of Illumination Valiant, got 3 third place votes. Kaneki's was a little bit more varied. He had the lower aspects of those kind of top things. So if people were putting the top 4 kind of all together, Kaneki got a lot more of those 4th place votes, whereas Traxon was getting a lot of those 2nd and 3rd place votes. So that's kind of, again, how this all balanced out between the two of them. Obviously, the tie between both of them reflects the fact that Kaneki got 3 first place votes. You come to expect a certain level of play from a veteran of the league and a champion of last split. Kaneki has stood up to those high expectations. People are you have people in other lanes that people thought were going to be among the top. Fishing for Honor, Kaneki, much as I don't want to discuss the other 2 people in this, yes, they should be included. Those people, again, Kaneki has done nothing wrong, I would argue, this split. They look to him for a win condition. He's viewed as an MVP candidate in many people's eyes. One of the differences, again, between Traxon and Kaneki is that some people did have a little bit of criticism towards Kaneki and say, well, he's not as consistent as Traxon in regards to the ability to carry other people around their level. Some people, and again, this was one of the major things of the split, one team rated him the 2nd worst AD carry in the entire league. I would say I do not agree with that, but that is to show the variation in regards to this player, whereas Traxon had kind of a more consistent line between them. So,
for Kaneki myself, I'm gonna say I don't know who put him as the 2nd worst AD carry in this league. I totally disagree. Honestly, I don't know what you did when you did your power ranking. This guy is, if there's one thing you can say about this guy is, where is he for 30 minutes? But when he hits that 30-minute mark, he is honestly, I think, the the scariest AD carry to go up against. He's always gonna keep up in CS. He's never gonna die too much in lane, if at all. And in team fight, for playing against him myself, God, he is hard to hit. He's always behind his front line, always not too far too, because he's always able to dish out damage. This guy is just really, really, really good.
Yeah, Kaneki is there. He's high up on that list because of how safe he is. And my favorite play this entire split is assassinating Kaneki with Rakan, and I'm not saying that to like boast about myself. I know it's my favorite play because I know I'll never do it again. I know he's gonna be safe. I know he's gonna be safe next time, and he's gonna learn from it. I know Kaneki's good, and that's the reason like I put him high up on my list.
Again, perfectly fair. Again, the fact of the matter is, MVP candidate in many people's eyes, got a lot of first place votes, a lot of respect towards this player. Moving on to number 4, and I've explicitly tried to, despite there being a 10-point difference between the first and the fourth, this player has to be included among the top. And that statement certainly just, when there's arguments between 1 and 4, this player, again, can easily be number 1. And that needs to be stressed here, that more so than any other role, I would argue you can't make this argument about top laners. You can't make this argument as easy about junglers. Mid lane, again, because you can make the argument of a couple. AD carry at least has to be 4 deep for potential bests. And we have got Bad Vibes Forever, a.k.a. Joey, a.k.a. Skull Arrow 7781 when he decided he really wanted to be toxic and got his 14-day vacation. Easily in the argument for best AD carry in the league. Team plays around him substantially. Capable of multiple champions. Record's impressive on that. Has the power to take over a game. Deserves praise for their play. Can surely take over that game. But the critique is the individual's mental state. If it takes over them as well, they have the bigger highs and the bigger downs in contrast perhaps to individuals like Traxon. So can easily be the best, can surely be the best on any given league, and can certainly carry a team to a championship, and giving him the resources to succeed is integral to their success. Just the statement that some people said that if this player tilts, you see it on the other side. Whereas you may not see that as easily with Traxon and Kaneki.
Before I start talking about Joey, I need to tell people, okay, that's it. We got through 4 ADCs. These guys are so good, and they make the ADC position the best position in the league this year. And it's not because the other players are bad. It's because these guys are just that much better. All right, so now talking about Joey, which is Bad Vibes Forever.
Yeah.
You guys are crazy for putting him at 4th. This guy has gotten pentakills after pentakills after quadra kills. This guy understands how to carry. This guy has destroyed Kaneki inside a game before, and he has destroyed Kaneki in what's seen as Kaneki's #1 position, which is the late game. He's played Kaneki well in the early game. He's played him well in the late game. He had better CS than him, and he's played well against Traxon as well. The only reason he should not be #1 is because Jay Doggett did well against him. Putting him #4 is criminal and is the biggest mistake of this entire power rankings in my eye.
I'm going to struggle because honestly, when I did my power rankings for AD carry, I was looking at these 5 names you see and 4, and Joey / Bad Vibes definitely deserve maybe higher, lower. It's hard, but honestly, in my opinion, he's probably the second best AD carry in this league. He knows how to carry. He is the 1v9 player. Not to say that the rest of Cosmic is not doing anything, but they play around him. I mean, he got 27 kills on Vayne. This is nearly 30 kills on a game. I don't think anyone this season has even come close to this, and Joey surely showed that he knows how to carry. The tilt opinion from people, I think it definitely is there, and I think this player does need to work on not tilt and stay calm. But honestly, it's hard to like tilt whenever you are always winning lane. He's never losing lane. He's just always smashing and getting ahead for his team and carrying.
Again, I I think we're all in consensus here that at the very least, this goes 4 deep. And I would certainly argue that anybody who doesn't list these 4, at the very least, in the top 10 in the league, are probably trolling a little bit. So I would certainly make the argument that you have to have at least 3 of these AD carries in the top 10 of the league. And obviously we'll get into the MVP votes later, but certainly this might be the best 4th place player in the league. Because let me just make that clear. Number 5, it's important to notice again that we are at the start of the cliff here. We have a 15-point drop to Attila. Obviously, the earlier parts, the first part of the split where Astro New Horizon went 0-3, did a lot of shifting of their roster. Attila was the face of Astro New Horizon, so certainly I would argue his rating took a hit as a result. He's once more displayed his ability to be a threat in multiple champions, and he has pocket picks that few laners in the league can boast having. It's not hard to have him jumping up into that discussion of best AD carry, but more so, again, still has those peaks and valleys in regards to their gameplay, and the earlier part of their split obviously weighed on this person's rankings in my eyes.
Yeah, Attila is good. It's just the problem with this year is because of how good the ADCs have been. And when the bar is so high, Attila has to settle for this 5th place ranking because even though he's good, he's just not as consistent as these people in the top 4.
Yeah, I agree. With Attila, I feel like he has no trouble facing against the top 4 you see or above him. I think he definitely can match them and probably even beat them. The issue with Attila is he came into the split and with a team that we saw being number 1s by far, and you see Attila starting the season 0-3. It's hard on the stats and on the way people look at him. He's not that the best player, and he's definitely a good man. There's the comeback from Astro, who's now hoping and fighting for a spot in playoff, and it's surely a lot on Attila, but I just don't think he's performing like a top 4 or top 3 AD carry display.
Yeah, and that's perfectly fine. Again, the difference between Bad Vibes Forever at 4th place to 6th place is 34 points, which is massive. So again, after Attila, we have another huge cliff here, down to Just Bad Cole, the number 6 AD carry from Arctic Gaming, promising with the potential for more, shown themselves capable of handling a variety of positions and situations, can easily be a top player at the position. They end up in next split, just need the experience. Again, quite simply, I think we can all agree that this is just the 2nd tier, no matter how you're arguing it. Of the top 4 or top 5, then the rest.
Yeah, this is where you get to the quote-unquote okay or bad ADCs, because Just Bad Cole is a good player. He's promising. Arctic Gaming has been such a mess that you really don't know what's happening over there.
Yeah, it's hard for me to rate Just Bad Cole because I haven't played against them. I haven't seen their game, and honestly, I just haven't heard of Arctic much about other than the advanced players. So I guess he does, in my opinion, deserve to be where he is. I'm just gonna have to wait for him next split or this split in the 2 weeks coming.
All right, moving on again. IPI or IPY or anything in regards to that. Originally started out as AD carry, marked as AD carry here. I believe he's now transitioned into mid lane for Classic Esports Era, but he's ranked as AD carry here. People think that, again, he can challenge most anybody in the league despite a small struggle. If he's on the champions that are necessary, people respect him, hold the player's ability in high regard, looking for him to put it all together soon. And again, obviously not originally an AD carry. Last split he was a mid laner. I believe he's transitioned back to mid lane, so there was some unsure ratings from some teams.
Yeah, if he's not an AD carry right now, he's transitioning back to mid laner. He just needs more games under his belt, and with how volatile Classic has been, it just it's weird to see him this low.
it's fun for me to hear like everyone's saying Hippie is not his main role or he's switching back. Actually, Hippie is going back to AD carry. I talked to him yesterday. He's actually going back to carry again.
Oh, that's great.
I think he's definitely one of the best laners. Like he's really strong into lane. It's when he comes on to team fight. I played against him, and I actually found it more easy to hit Hippie as an AD carry than it was to hit the tank. Honestly, Hippie was super accessible. Positioning was a super big weakness of this player, and I'd like to see him work on that a little bit.
Sounds good. Again, wherever Hippie ends up, I'm sure he'll continue to refine his game. Coming in at, I guess, 8th would be Ballistic 1 of Classic Esports Arrow, formerly jungler. Also spent some time at AD carry, put here, showed a great deal of potential in the first few weeks, racking up victories, capable on a variety of champions. Although they're presently in the jungle or alternatively AD carry, I'm not even sure anymore due to the instability of Classic Esports Arrow. General feeling is that the impact this player had earlier on in the split is waning, much like the team they play for. If they show the potential they've teased, the ranking and their record will improve quickly. Certainly a player to watch next split as well as this split to see what, because the jury is certainly out on this player.
Yeah, Ballistic is interesting because he gets the same treatment as Sand Gaming Alien. When people talk a lot in the banter and the general chat, people usually think that they're worse than they actually are. I think Ballistic is okay, but he could definitely improve on areas like picking his Draven. His Draven, picking things that you're not as comfortable in the competitive setting is just a no-no for me.
Ballistic, it feels awkward for me because whenever I play against him, he was jungle. I remember this guy when Redemption, when we talk about him, I think week 1 or 2, when Redemption Classic was actually really, really good and being 3-0 at the time. I think it was Feathers that said he was gonna check onto this guy more because he was actually performing really well, and seeing him now so low in the standing or in the list, it's kind of awkward. I mean, for sure he's shown what this player is capable of doing, and I think compared to other laners we have right now, it's very limited. I think there's place for him to progress for sure. I think he could become in like 1 split or 2 probably the best AD carry, but for now he's gonna have to settle on being the right under Ippy.
So again, just looking at this, we've got Just Bad Cole with 50, we've got Ippy with 48, we've got Ballistic with 47. Coming up next is Lloyd with 46. So once more, this entire group is so very close. Like, this is an entire group, 100% almost all ranked in the same area. Professor Lloyd, again, now he's went back up to top lane, but spent a great deal at AD carry here. Shown himself to be capable with good synergy with his support. Being in this area simply means, again, it's a product of Mad Unicorns and just simply more work and more experience. Just putting the time in. Some people feel he needs to be more aggressive and seize opportunities more, in the sense that he was really argued to be one of the most passive laners in AD carry this split.
Yeah, again, when you look at the AD carries this split, you look at how aggressive they are, and you're so happy for that. But then you look at Professor Lloyd, and he's just too passive to be able to play against really aggressive players, and I just think he loses out on that part.
Professor Lloyd, honestly, I feel like this guy is a bit underrated, but also he's rated appropriately. I think he could be a little bit better. I think he could work on his play himself, because I think he's a lot better than what he has right now and what he has shown. He has a really good support with him, and I'm surprised that he's not performing better. I'm waiting to see from Mad Unicorns. Honestly, next split for IBS, I'm waiting for Mad Unicorn to come back, because I think this team could really be a great team if they can fix their issues.
And by the way, I'm getting information that he is moving back to top lane.
Yeah.
Oh, rip.
So again, I think just in general, like I said, the #1 team I'm looking at next split is Mad Unicorns. I think they are going to take that step forward. I think that there was a lot of promise. I just think that one of the major things in Iron, Bronze, Silver, again, as a split, is you need a couple of players, but you also need enough stability. And you look at a lot of the teams that have struggled in the last, 3 or 4 weeks, especially in the later, like the second half of the split, it has been the teams that have had that instability who have continued to drift out of the playoff picture. And Mad Unicorns had a really good showing this last week. We'll see if they can kind of keep it up. In 10th and 11th are both Toxic Nature's AD carries, Fire AD carry and Lovely Lily. Again, we won't talk too much. People have highlighted very clearly that Toxic Nature's AD carries have been a struggle for them this split through these votes, and hopefully this player can show what they're truly capable next split. It's important to note that despite their position, they were originally on a team that could originally make playoffs before things changed last week. Just need to show what they're capable of. Same with Lovely Lily. Capable fill-in player, struggled in the weeks they played, could be a force next split. So, I don't really think there's too much more to be said. Is there anything from you two before we move on to sports? Of course you wouldn't. Of course you would. Supports, clearly, supports tiering exists in this position. Top 3 players, rest in the middle, lower tier. Points clearly convey this, speak to a similar tales last split, and yet the first place votes are more scattered than one might think. The tail on what makes a good support here means that players were often judging their abilities less so than their champion pool here. And that was just something that kind of I found. Most importantly, we've got number 1, the almost century player, to secure the most first place votes in their position at this point. We have LeBram James, again, our fellow guest here, with 6 first place votes. Widely considered to be one of the best sports in the league last season. Continue that even more forward this split. Proactive player, affects the map in a variety of ways. Continually trying to change the game for their team and kind of, if they're in a position, where they're on the back foot, this player is never really on the back foot and trying to change that, in a positive way for their team. Can be a detriment. Obviously, we can't have entirely 100% high compliments, even for the player who got the most points this split in their position. Some teams have said, well, we've exploited their play style, and their play style as it is, they don't change it the same way. But I feel like that's an unfair critique in the sense that it's been working so well. It's worked for the better part of 2 splits. Is that really going to be the statement that people are going to make? One of the best vision scores, presence known in every game they play, which I would argue most supports certainly can't have as a feather in their cap. So here we are, the number 1 point getter in regards to their position, the most first place votes. We've got our fellow guest here, LeBram James. Anything you want to talk about with yourself?
I'm not actually going to say too much. I'm just going to say first that I'm very surprised that I was the number 1. I thought New Jackson would get it over me, and it wouldn't even be close. I didn't think I would be the number 1 support. But second, what I want to say is just because I think I'm a better support than others is because how I'm proactive. Is because other supports, if you want to show that you're good, then show it. You can't just stand around your ADC until they make a cool play. You got to be the one that's starting those things. You got to be the one that's actually showing that you are better than other supports instead of staying back and not taking control of the lane with your ADC.
My boy LeBram James. First of all, F you for beating me in points. I mean, all I'm gonna say about LeBram is that IBS I Play Support made a meme recently about him. I don't know if he's brilliant or just super bad. I agree totally with this guy, with what he said. LeBram James is the kind of player you're gonna be in lane, and he's gonna do this dumbest thing you've ever seen. He's just gonna walk up to you and stop your back and take like 70% of his HP off. He's gonna have to recall again, and you're like, okay, this guy's a monkey. You're gonna go back to lane, try to smash this guy, and suddenly he's gonna engage on you, get a 2-man knock up on Rakan or whatever, and you're gonna get double kill. And it's like that every single game. He's really proactive. He likes to roam, and he knows how to give his team and his AD carry the leads they need to 1v9.
Yeah, again, I simply couldn't agree more. Again, not that I don't want to linger on this, but I certainly don't want us to have, make this something where we're all just talking about how amazing and awesome we are. But the fact of the matter is, again, most points, most first place votes in their role, clearly doing something right. Number 2, we've got Divine Moose 13 of Illumination Valiant coming in 15 points below at 84. Still more, a fantastic score. Undoubtedly somebody that many people were impressed with. And one of the surprises of the split, I would argue, for a lot of people. Synergize incredibly well with their partner in Landon Kaneki. Impressive player, earn the respect of those who have faced them. That's not to say there isn't criticism of this player. Arguments about, this small champion pool, and more so than the others of Illumination Valiant, was argued to be an enabler of those players rather than a participant. So in the contrast versus first and second, the argument of being a little bit more passive, not being the, being perhaps the driving force for the team. And I think Illumination Valiant would certainly disagree with that. So do not take that, again, as gospel truth. That being said, number 2, Divine Moose 13 from Illumination Valiant, who also received 1 first place vote.
So I was actually so sad that I didn't get to play against Divine Moose when we were playing Illumination. We instead had to put Indigo at support, and Indigo is not a support. So I really, really wanted to play against Divine Moose because I wanted to see how good he is personally. From the stats, from what I see, I can definitely see that he's not the best champion pool, but the champions he played with, he's doing well on them, so that's not the biggest problem. I feel like he has a big potential.
I agree with you. I think Divine Moose is really... What? Okay, I agree with you. Divine Moose is really, really, really good. I do think he deserved the second place here.
We're sorry. Others is playing around with that document right now.
So I don't know if you guys will be able to see this, but he is a Feathers is apparently the only guy who was able to beat Divine Moose in lane. I still think he deserved the second spot. Divine Moose, I think he's really proactive. Whenever I played against him, he was roaming a lot into my lane, especially in the Zoe game that I'm getting flamed a lot for. He was in my lane 24/7, and he was super annoying. And even in the game 1, he was still there a lot. I think maybe one mistake I could see from this guy is maybe mechanically. I've seen some plays from him with his Alistar where he tries to flash, does the headbutt pulverize combo, just a little bit not sync. Like he flash and there's like a little gap where you could like react to it and dodge the engage. But as of right now, it hasn't like been too costly for his team.
I feel like this player even got a little bit of a raw deal in regards to their votes. People have said, well, they're an enabler of other players. When we played against this player in week 1, they were everywhere, especially in Jensen's lane. And to hear that people were going, well, no, he's more passive, doesn't have a big champ pool. They're passive, they don't have a big champ pool. Like, I was surprised by that. So once more, I want to stress that this is what others said, not necessarily me. Coming in at number 3, we've got a role swapper and veteran in Kuda of Earth. After his role swap, looks like an entirely different player. People really stressed how uncomfortable this player looked in mid in the first 3 weeks, and how different they look now coming up. That being said, the critique is that their turnaround came against weaker teams originally, like originally Toxic Nature and such. So whether that translates against stronger teams is yet to be seen. After this happened, they had a 3-game series against Illumination Valley, took them to the edge, but ultimately came up a bit short. But Kuda falls in at the number 3 position here. So
yeah, I actually have really, really high regards for Kuda. I think he's so good. I just don't think he's a full-on support yet. Once he becomes a full-on support and once he actually learns the position, he'll be so much better than this. He has a good KDA, but when I'm saying like he's not becoming a support yet, I'm saying his warding is not that good, and his positioning as a support is not that good, but everything else, he has so much good potential to be a top support.
Kuda. I want you guys to tell me if you recognize this story. Kuda goes to a lane, hints, switches lane, wins. Does that sound like familiar to you guys?
I said that first. By the way, that's the feathers and oracle. Stop me if you heard this. Again, Kuda seems like he's just a player who changes substantially when he switches lanes. So.
He went from mid to mid lane. He was honestly disappointing me. He was actually having a lot of struggle in mid lanes. Goes to support and suddenly becomes like, here you see it, number 3 support. And some people could even argue that if he started support this split, he could even be number 2 or even challenging for number 1. He's really good. He has, I think, some positioning issues as a support where he gets caught a little bit too much on Morganas and such. But I mean, there's no doubt that this guy is really good at support.
Again, we're moving on to number 4 here because we're still going to go over 2 hours no matter how we do it. But in any case, we're still having a blast. Number 4, probably one of the more controversial ones, I would argue. Level 6 Power Spike of Redemption, who received 2 first place votes. There's a lot of controversy in this. Described as the epitome of waiting until 20 minutes and winning a team fight for their team. He's been one who's been picked off or gotten the necessary pick for his team. Others have said he's merely hopping in the backpack of one of the better AD carries in the league in J-Doggish, and that there's nothing spectacular about this player. Some people gave this player a worst support in the entire league vote. 2 people gave them the best support in the entire league vote. The biggest variance in player in the entire league. Level 6 Power Spike from Redemption.
Yeah, I don't know because again I haven't played against level 6 Power Spike. My only one was against Feathers, so it was not. I did not see what Power 6 could do. Level 6 could do, but he's really interesting. And I don't know why, but it seems a lot of players use Leona to become so much better than the people view them to be. So like Divine Moose, one of his favorite picks is Leona, and same with level 6 Power Spike. I don't know if it's like
he actually is not. He hates champion. Actually, I think.
Well, okay, yeah, I'm gonna actually let you guys speak more about him because I want to know more about him. Same thing with Divine Moose. Yeah. Top teams just don't play their supports when I play them for some reason.
Yeah, level 6 Power Spike is honestly, he's a pike main, if you guys haven't realized the little pun in his fucking name. He doesn't really like Leona. Coming from himself, he says he's not even that good at the champion. Honestly, what I'm gonna say about this guy, and he's really good. When you come at the team fight phase of the game, he's really good. He's gonna find the pick that you need to win the team fight, the big man 3-man stun or the stun on DD carry. The thing is, this guy gets caught a lot just trying to get vision. He's gonna see a ward. I feel like he's more tempted to go kill the ward than he is to kill a champion. He's gonna see the AD carry and sometimes he's not gonna go in, but he sees a ward. My guy, you can guarantee he's gonna go for that ward and he's gonna die. That's just how he plays.
Well, point taken. Moving on. Number 5, we've got Jibs and Bits. Monkeys in Training. Once more, important to note that JJ was not rated here. JJ was the typical support Monkeys in Training. They switched him up to top lane. So Jibs and Bits, their current one. They also have another one, but this was the one listed. Solid player, could be the missing piece, along with the swap of lanes for JJ from support to top. The Monkeys in Training needed to revitalize their playoff push. They're going to make playoffs. It's more about synergy now. Many people weren't sure what to make of this player point-wise. So there's potential for a substantial climb. Criticism, some have said they simply die too much, so they don't have the impact they need in the games they do play. So, number 5.
Jibs and Bits, do you guys JJ, it's not. He should be this high. I'm sorry. But like, I feel like Jibs and Bits gets carried by Trax and Heart. And that he's a new player that can become better, but for now he does not deserve to be this high in my book.
I agree. I don't know what happened inside of Monkeys in Training. or JJ to move out top lane, I'd like to know, but I guess we might never know. Jibs, I mean, he's not a bad player in any way. He's doing his job. He's supporting Traxon, but I feel like it is Traxon carrying more, and I felt like the JJ Traxon bot lane was way scarier than Jibs and Bits and Traxon together would be.
Again, I offer no commentary because I do believe that legitimately Monkeys in Training is a championship contender of a team. I would not be surprised for a second if they are in the finals. And there has to be things again that occurred that people aren't aware of. As such, I think Jibs and Bits struggled at the start, but I think that definitely, given how the support atmosphere is, can this player easily be, in second and third? I think so, but that also speaks to, how people in general view support. So it's difficult. I think there's a couple people below this that people would argue could be higher. There's a couple people, again, perhaps above this. It all depends. That's just Jibs and Bits. To me, their ranking kind of represents the uncertainty of support for people, in the sense that, they have nowhere near the same experience as Traxon and JJ. So, can this be a championship bot lane? Absolutely. But I think people have the right to feel a little bit wary at this point and unsure.
I'm actually really, really excited to play him. I believe in our next game, which should be streamed. Vote for the guys, Cosmic versus MIT. Jibs and Bits, I'm really excited to play him and to kick his butt. But Jibs and Bits, if you're hearing this, I'm coming for you, boy.
All right, number 6. If there was controversy around level 6 Power Spike being 4th, we have I Play Support, aka Resident Hooker, who played for Astronew Horizon, Illumination Valiant, 100 Thieves, KT Rollster, SK Telecom T1, and Classic Esports Arrow, all over the course of this split. 62 points, coming in at about 6th, despite what people have called a weak performance this split. I want to stress that a lot of people rated this person, relatively well. 7th, 8th, clearly a top 5 support, but the amount of criticism in regards to those made me feel that everyone wanted to have this person at 10th, 11th. They would, at the start of the split, I guarantee people wanted to have I Play Support up here with Divine Moose, perhaps even swapping the two. That's people felt all the way through. They're like, I gotta put I Play Support somewhere, but I can't put him here. And this person's done a little bit more. Okay, I'll give him a 7 or an 8 or stuff like that. And so people highly respect this player. I think people just, again, really found it hard to rate this player. This was, I think, very difficult for a lot of people, especially veterans of the league. Bad splits happen. A variety of circumstances. Played on 3 different teams. Sub between starter and bench. Again, more times than perhaps some people imagine. Played on 3 teams in 1 week, so to say. No player was as polarizing as this one. Some people, again, very similar to Gambit, said they're one of the few players who hadn't won a series yet. Had to be acknowledged in their ranking. Some people went so far to say, no, weakest support in the entire league. One team said that. Gave them 1 point. And so, certainly a controversial player in regards to where they're rated. They clock in here at number 6. Again, I Play Support.
All right. Resident Hooker, my man Robin. Look, this is where the C word comes in. Consistency, guys. I want to rate you higher, man, but you got to stay with the team. We need to know if you're good or bad. We just don't know. And I really want to know. So please, it was fun playing against him last season. We were voting for every single last All-Star pick to send one of us to be an All-Star for as a support. And I really wanted to stay with the team so I can play with him in a consistent team and understand if he's good or bad.
Yeah, I Play Support. But honestly, if he was new in the league, honestly, I'm 100% sure it would be number 11. No doubt in my mind. If he was new, it would be number 11. And when you look at this player, and how he's played in the past, and just how he plays even now, you have. I mean, I couldn't put him lower than how I put him. I think he's still one of the best support in the league. He just hasn't shown that this split, and I mean it happens. But in the end, can you really just say that he's the worst support in the league just because of one weak split? I mean, I think you could, but in my opinion, you shouldn't put him lower than what he is.
Again, and I think that's a fair statement. My general feeling is this is appropriate for right now, but there certainly was that feeling for a lot of people that this could have easily been a number 1 or number 2 or number 3 split for this player. They've struggled a fair bit, so they've taken a couple steps back. I would argue that no player will be able to jump up next split on the same level as I play support. Like, if comes back with a team, strong synergy, there's no discussion. Like, this player will certainly be top 3. No questions asked in regards to that. But fact of the matter is, it's been a poor split. You move on. You regain your mojo. Next split again, entirely different. And a lot of people hold this player in high regard. Coming in just below is the person who potentially replaced him at one point, the big Canadian from Classic Esports Era at 61 points. Player definitely has the respect to their peers, rated in a solid spot given their relatively small experience in the league. Players feel that this guy's got a lot of promise with a high KDA, relatively high impact in games on a variety of champions. So
yeah, I think the big Canadian is actually so good. I rated him so high in my favorite. I believe I ranked him like third best support, because if you look at his games, he's not playing no mess around support. He's not playing. He's playing Blitzcrank. He's playing Thresh. He's playing Leona. He's playing these high impact supports, and he's doing well with them. And when you have somebody that's doing that, he's always gonna get a high praise in my book. Look, playing Blitzcrank as a support in these leagues is so hard because you have their ADCs yelling at their support to stay behind minions every 2 seconds, and everyone's just focused. I have such high regards for this guy, and I believe he carried Classic in their first 3 games, and I want to see more out of him. I can't wait to play him for the last game of the season.
The big Canadian, I haven't seen him play, honestly. I know that he did really well with Classic when they started 3-0. I don't know much about him. I know he has a lot of people talking about him, and I know in Astro server there's a lot of people who wanted him. I think I'm gonna have to wait to see more of him, but I mean he should definitely be respected as a player.
And again, in the same vein of kind of players that perhaps people expected up near the top, receiving a first place vote, but still coming in at about 6th or 7th is Tem from Mad Unicorns, the former MVP of last split. Once more showing a slightly profound difference, and perhaps the product of Mad Unicorn's frequent lane swaps. MVP of last split has had a less than impressive split in regards to results. Still viewed again among, for some people, a top tier support in the league. He is far ahead of his teammates point wise if you go across stuff. Capable player as always, especially in the area of warding, but their kill participation combined with their deaths have some people saying, well, it's not just simply team based. You can't simply put it only on, the other players around Tem. You also have to give it to Tem as well. Also, polarizing player. They received a first place vote. They received a last place vote.
Yeah, Tem is so interesting. Tem was the MVP last spring, last split, and it was for a good reason. He was good. He was really, really good. And from what I heard, he's got some issues in his personal life. That's why he's not as good as other players. So right now, I wish this didn't happen to him, and we could still see his form from last season.
Yeah, I personally still put him number 2 in my rankings. I think Tem is still a really, really strong laner. Sadly, for his personal performance, it doesn't show because his team is struggling hard. I think, though, he is still the best performing player on this team. And when you're on a bad team, I feel like it's hard to really see how good a player is, but I mean, I still can see how good he is because even sometimes in their games, I see Professor Lloyd having a even or positive KDA, and I'm pretty sure it's because of them actually initiating the plays and making what he needs to do. I still see this guy as one of the best supports and should never be underestimated by anyone.
Again, for myself, I feel like, again, Resident Hooker, AK Robin, and Tem, I feel like these players are going to bounce back massively next split, and people who perhaps are around this split are going to underestimate them because of their slight struggles this split, and they're going to come back with a vengeance. That's just my own feeling. That's one of the few opinions I'll give. Again, Arctic Gaming's... I know there's almost no way I butcher this name, so I might as well just make it sound like it's like a really weird like orcish thing. Horuge from Arctic Gaming. This player is also one who simply hasn't been given the proper time and due to a result of circumstances. So Arctic Gaming, again, difficult team for people to read. One of the few players who's kind of stayed around, can easily ascend the ranks of support next split with a few weeks where they show people how capable they truly are. Has potential. We'll see what comes of that. Also, just kind of moving on so we can wrap up the last two. We've got two players who perhaps haven't spent a lot of time in support with the Snake 5 and Kazidius, who are both players who have been removed from rosters during this split. Snake 5 just being a capable player, able to do more, most likely with more time if they return this split. Likely a victim of not having enough time in the league for people to know their name. Games they did play, they're below average in most categories, capable more. We'll see if they show it. And Kazidius may not be able to take over a game, but not really a player that's going to hurt you or be likely to throw the game for you. Hard to tell what the player is able to do on support due to the role swap, and did struggle in lane as an AD carry in regards to a different role. So these three, again, near the 9th, 10th, and 11th.
Yeah, I'm not going to speak too much about Snake 5 and Cassidius, but I did only play one game against Harugo, and for what it's worth, he did play really well on the Galio. He made me struggle in some points. I really think he's better than this, and I think it's Arctic Gaming having problems more than him having problems. I want to see more out of him, though.
Yeah, I feel like for Arctic Gaming, whenever you talk about their players, it's always like lack of information, lack of plays. Other than just bad goal, I feel like we haven't seen any of their players. I think he's probably maybe better than what he is right now. If he made Ibram struggle, I mean, I guess this does deserving a little bit more points. I guess we'll have to see for next place if he comes back. For Snake 5, honestly, I didn't even know that Mad Unicorns used another support. I don't even remember seeing his name on the power rankings, so it's kind of weird. But I mean, they need to settle on their support, and I don't think he's the guy. I think if you come back the next bit, my unicorns, you set on Tem. And for Kazidis, I have nothing to say about him.
Okay. So moving on to the last little thing, again, we've got some MVP votes. Again, every single team was given, or every single representative was given 5 MVP votes. There was nothing that prioritized one over the other. So again, you were just given 5 votes. That was it. And given 5 names. So there's no my first vote, my second vote, anything like that. Each vote was weighed exactly the same. So in general, we had a couple around 4, a couple around 5, and 3. So we'll look at those. We'll briefly talk again about kind of people in the first group, then perhaps the lower group for any surprises that people feel. Perhaps this player should have gotten a few more votes, or this surprised me. And again, this by no means is a statement as to who's, quote, the front runner for MVP, just simply what other people had seen thus far. So, looking at 5, 4, and 3 here, we have, oddly enough, we have 3 of the 6 people who are present here. We've got we've got the new Jensen, who's currently who was given the most votes with 5. 3 individuals at 4 with J-Doggish, Kaneki, and some other top laner at 4. And Labram, Joey, or again his dual lane partner Bad Vibes Forever, and Traxon at 3. I don't want to get into this kind of too much because obviously that, all three of us are represented here. And I would certainly make the argument in regards to either of you two that both of you are more than deserving of the MVP this split, as well as anybody here in this top three, or like with 3 votes. I would be interested. The question I'm going to ask, quite frankly, because again we've got 7 names here. Would any of these ones particularly unsettle you if they were the MVP of the split?
No.
So.
But I'm gonna say one thing. I really hope that we would talk about MVP a little bit because I want to flame you, Feathers. You are a top tier player, and you are not.
I'm muting you. So.
You honestly, I feel like
Please
any
don't.
players that are there should be able to win MVP and deserve a fair bit of speaking, including you.
Okay.
Mute me if you want it.
That's why I said, would anybody be opposed if any of these players got MVP?
They all really deserve a voice in MVP vote, and they should really be proud to what they've done so far this season.
Yeah, I think there's nothing wrong with these group of people. I could add more people to it, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think that a couple more people from just below this should leap up, but I think as well it reflects very effectively in regards to the general ideas of the split. We have the top 4 AD carries all here represented with 3 votes, which is a discussion that we had previously. That JD, Kaneki, Joey, Traxon, all of them got substantial votes. All of them are in the top 7 for vote getters for MVP. So they have been recognized. And I feel like, again, more than deserving. And it also reflects, again, that not like JD and Kaneki have only like 1 more vote, which isn't anything big, which easily can reflect how, Traxon or Bad Vibes is more than deserving as well for the MVP. So that speaks to the parity there. I think there's a couple more people who should leap up. We'll see that. We only have 2 individuals at 2. So once more, just to keep that aware, 9 individuals received 2 or more votes. So a lot of people at 1, and that's nothing against any of them. Just a simple statement that only 10 players got multiple votes. And the additional people at 2 are Z-Mags and Rumble My Bumhole, 2 junglers at 2. And then we have a lot of individuals at 1. We have Lynx, Recon Game from Monkeys in Training, Mike's World from Toxic Nature, Delot, Finny or Vaporizer from multiple teams, Swaggy P, Fishing for Honor, Kuragano, Attila, Just Bad Cole, Kuda of Earth, Divine Moose 13, and Tem. So those are, again, the entire MVP votes thus far. So we have 10 people who got 2 or more. We have about 10 who got 1. Almost every team gets represented in regards to MVP votes, so that's kind of neat. Arctic Gaming had Just Bad Cole, Toxic Nature had Mike's World, Mad Unicorns had both Tem and Kuragano, Classic had Delot. So there is, again, a lot of variation. A lot of teams at least got 1 vote. So, general thoughts. Is there anybody from the 1 vote that you feel, again, should be up in the top 10? Along with, like, Z-Mags, Rumble My Bumhole. Is there somebody at the 1 that you feel?
They shouldn't be, and I was going to list a few of them. But no, I do think people in the 1 votes, like Divine Moose, and maybe people like Swaggy P and Fishing for Honor should be a little bit higher.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't think Rumble My Bumhole is that good until we see more out of him. And D-Max, everyone knows what, of course.
No, I totally agree with everything. Honestly, I think sadly for people under with the 2 and under, I don't think they're gonna have much chance because I don't think you're really the big carry you look at when you look at your teams. Z-Max is when you look at the elimination, you look at mainly at Kaneki and maybe Swaggy P. Honestly, I could see Swaggy P maybe have a couple more votes, but honestly, I think it's mostly Kaneki for this team. And Rumble My Bumhole, I feel like he's not been in the league for long enough to really be deserving of an MVP vote.
All right, and again, 100%, totally fair. Just going to do a brief kind of 5-minute overview. Again, the MVP votes mean, this one again is 100% community based, means absolutely nothing, does not mean that, again, Jensen, while he continues his MVP campaign in general chat as he is more than wont to do, I personally feel that, anybody above 3 votes, nobody should feel like they're being gypped / cheated in regards to that. Wrapping stuff up, just general thoughts for people. Top lane, people felt that there was a lot more closeness in regards to lowest to highest. Junglers, a lot of people got a first place vote, more so than almost any other one other than support. So support was a little bit similar to that. Support had a really high tiering at the top with the particular 2 people and everybody else in regards to that middle. And mid lane and AD carry were relatively top heavy with a lot of very capable players who really stepped up this split. Any kind of final thoughts here from LeBram?
Thank you so much, Feathers, for all of this. I want to say a special thanks to Maple as well for making the stat sheet look freaking amazing. We have a freaking foldy sheet in there. Like, you guys need to check that stat sheet out when you can. But again, thank you to Feathers and really, for all the content that he has produced. This guy works so hard for IBS and he gets nothing in return.
Yeah, I totally agree here. The stat sheet is amazing from Ken Maple, and honestly, Feathers a good job on everything you do in the articles and this video that's going to come out. Honestly, 10 out of 10, my dude.
So again, we're clocked in at 2 hours and 16 minutes. The major focus, again, I'm hearing from both of you. Thanks, Can Maple. Really, again, a great job, Can Maple, stepping up, doing everything that's necessary. Other people, having their own small roles as well. Good on them. Once more, wrapping things up, a lot of potential for next split. A lot of stuff still to come on this split. Good chances for people to prove these power rankings wrong or prove them inherently right. 2 splits ago, we had, and, the new Jensen will certainly talk about this, Vandal was a team that was near the lower end of the power rankings and they ended up winning it all. So by no means, again, does that mean that these rankings are reflective of, a player's talent. Sometimes it's just a case of experience. Sometimes, again, it's a role swap. But in any case, this has been Zero Gravity Gaming's 2-hour plus podcast for the Iron, Bronze, Silver Power Rankings. I think I'm going to be unable to talk for a while. So again, for the new Jensen and LeBram James, I'm Feathers and Fur saying thank you for tuning in. Hope you love it. And, I can't wait to see all the trash talk that comes of this. So, peace, and love.